Hello, everyone. We're going to get started in a very few minutes. We're waiting for a couple more people and we will get started. Thank you for joining us tonight. We're going to get started in a couple of minutes. We're going to start in about 1 minute. Okay, I think it's time. Thank you for joining us for Too Early or Too Late. When is the right time for hospice? Brought to you by Weinstein Hospice. So, welcome to the 5th year of the nationally recognized award-winning Conversations series. This program will help you understand palliative and hospice care in Atlanta. When is the right time and how to access it without too much trouble. Weinstein Hospice will meet the patient wherever they are in their journey. So there's really not a too early, too late because Weinstein Hospice will meet the patient at the right time. I am Richard Bressler, former board chair of the Weinstein Hospice Board of Advisors, having served as marketing chair from 2012 to 2024, and also a former member of the Jewish Home Life Board of Directors. I'm a career healthcare marketer and community volunteer for Weinstein Hospice, having graduated from Tulane and Northwestern universities. Weinstein Hospice is the palliative and end-of-life component of Jewish Home Life, an organization centered on aging which provides care for a new age. As the only Jewish not-for-profit hospice in Georgia, we tackle issues of community concern in a series of conversations. We've completed the production of 17 successful Zoom webinars for Weinstein Hospice, all targeted at generating awareness and promoting a conversation among the 45 to 60-year-old population in northern metro Atlanta. The conversations are available for viewing at www.weinsteinhospice.com under the Resources tab. They are also available on our YouTube channel, and this one will reside there after completion. After we finish this one, we have 2 more conversations planned through May of this year. I will now introduce our 2 speakers. Aliza Afrah is the nurse practitioner for Weinstein Hospice. She obtained a BS in sociology from CUNY, a BSN in nursing from Georgia State, and a master's degree in science and nursing from South University in Savannah. She has considerable clinical experience. She's worked with geriatric patients in a variety of roles. Aliza is a strong advocate for her patients. In her free time, she spends time with her husband and children and volunteers at her synagogue. Aliza will explain how palliative and hospice can help a patient and family. Cindy Hopkins received her undergraduate degree from WashU in St. Louis and earned her Master of Social Work from the University of Georgia. An Atlanta native, Cindy is a licensed clinical social worker and has worked with Weinstein Hospice for 8 years, where she provides compassionate, patient, and family-centered care. Cindy is married and the proud mother of 3 sons, along with 2 furry sons. Outside of her professional work, she enjoys hiking, reading, Pilates, and spending time with her family. Cindy will also explain how hospice and palliative care can help a patient and family. We will start with Aliza and then go to Cindy. We hope this becomes an interactive session, so please put your questions in the chat box and or the Q&A box. We should get to them all after the ladies have had a chance to speak. Aliza?
Thank you, Richard. And thank you everyone for joining. Good evening. I hope everyone's staying warm. I wanted to start off by explaining what palliative care even is, right? It's a big word, not as scary as hospice, but definitely we need to explain what it is and how it's beneficial. Palliative care is specialized medical care. Not everyone's eligible for it, and I'll discuss the eligibility for palliative care shortly. But what it does is it provides patients with a holistic care approach in helping them through chronic and sometimes terminal illnesses and meeting them where they're at. Certain illnesses such as cancers, kidney failure, heart failure, neurodegenerative diseases such as Parkinson's or Alzheimer's can be scary, really quite overwhelming. And palliative care takes, in my opinion, the fear away from that diagnosis and provides assistance to the patient while they're navigating that journey. In order to qualify for palliative, you need to have a diagnosis, right, and doctor's orders. So simply because, a patient may have a change in condition or a status, maybe they're becoming weaker, more forgetful, they have more pain than they've had in the past. Now, while everyone wants to help, right, we need that diagnosis in order for insurance to cover the benefits of palliative care. So it's a great program, but you need to be eligible. And then the benefits of palliative is that a nurse practitioner, right, with Weinstein, which is me, would come out to see the patient in their own home, wherever that home is. So whether it's their private home or if they're in a skilled nursing facility, assisted living facility, and I get to meet with the patient and their family and help navigate through issues such as pain management, stress, or psychosocial issues that deal with, navigating an illness that can be quite debilitating and overwhelming. I work together with the current care team. So like I tell patients, I don't replace anyone. I get to hop on board and help you discuss things with your doctors, right, and your nurses, and your therapists, and figure out what works best for you at that time. Palliative works alongside curative treatments, right? So for patients with a cancer diagnosis, they can still pursue chemo or radiation and still enjoy the benefits of palliative care as well. Um, to answer the question of too early, there is no such thing as too early with palliative, right? So we can join in at any step of the way. I always say, when is the right time? You get to decide that as the patient, right? Um, as I tell my patients, I'm a part of your crew, right? Of your ship crew. You steer the ship, and I get to be your on your deck to help navigate the journey with you. Although I remind them that it's their journey, I just get to assist along the way. Um, Palliative helps navigate when the right time is to maybe consider switching over to hospice, what treatments are no longer in the patient's best interest, or maybe they want to look into different treatments or different options. I like to say that I get to provide oversight, right? Whereas certain doctors or specialties focus on one particular issue, um, I get to look at the bigger picture together with the family and the patient, um, which is truly a privilege and an honor. Um, I will pass it on to Cindy to explain a little bit more about how hospice um, can help navigate the journey and whether it's too early or too late.
Hello, everybody. Um, so with hospice, it's a very scary word, and we all know that. It is very hard to make the call, even to call our office and ask about appropriateness for hospice or to broach the topic with Aliza if you're on our palliative program. So we are very aware of this and sensitive to it. Um, we want to be able to hold your hand from the minute you call our office. Hospice um, is us saying that you are no longer, is you deciding that that you or your loved one is no longer interested in aggressive treatment, but instead our focus is on comfort and on having each day be as good as it can for as long as it can. And we're going to follow the lead of the patient. Um, it also means that we're going to help bring medical care to you. So the patient would no longer have to go to doctor's appointments and spend their energy doing that. Instead, we're bringing the care to you, and you have one number to call if you have questions. We have a 24/7 phone number, so you always know who to call. You're not waiting until the end of the day for someone to finish seeing all their patients to call you back. We're there to address what is going on and what concerns and questions you have 24/7. You're also saying that you don't want your loved one to go back to the hospital, but instead you want all the care to be provided in the home. I should point out that sometimes what a patient wants is not necessarily what the family wants. And at the end of the day, I'm sorry, our lights are flickering. It looks like the cold weather is already starting here. At the end of the day, the patient gets to choose what it is that they want. They are the captain of the ship. We think of ourselves as all a part of the team helping to manage the care, but the patient is the captain of the ship, and the family sometimes needs to step in. But uh, if there's a family that really wants hospice for a patient and a patient is cognizant and able to make their own decisions and it's not what they want, then it's not the right time. And we're here for when or if that time does come. Um, I also did want to say that hospice brings in various specialties. We have a nurse case manager, who's the main nurse who would be in charge of each patient's care. They come a minimum of twice a week, more if needed. There's a social worker who's on the team. They come a minimum of twice a month or more if needed. We have a musical therapist on our staff. We have a chaplain who is Jewish but administers to all faiths. We have a volunteer program, and our volunteer coordinator works very hard to make really beautiful matches between patients and families and our volunteers. And sometimes there's some furry friends who are brought into the picture. Um, Aliza, am I leaving something out? Am I trying to make
I think
sure
you're
I
doing
have everything?
perfect, Cindy. Now, did you also say our music therapist?
I did say the music
I
therapist,
love
but one
that.
other thing I wanted to say is, and Aliza can go into the physical or medical components of what makes you appropriate for hospice, but I want to make sure we add that sometimes we do get a referral from a doctor in the community who believes that their patient is ready for hospice, but our hospice team does their own assessment and may find that actually this person is not ready for hospice. There does have to be a life expectancy of 6 months or less. Sometimes it goes well beyond that, but that is what Medicare is saying is the purpose for bringing hospice into the picture. And so it's not just the community doctor saying it's time and this is appropriate. We also, our staff has to be on board. Um, it's a wonderful benefit. We want to be able to support everybody who's at a place in their life where they want that support and want all the care brought to them. Unfortunately, we have guidelines we have to adhere to.
That
Okay. So you want to go back and talk about a specific example?
I would love to. I'll start by explaining, or not explaining. I'll start by telling everyone about a palliative patient that I had and how we worked together to transfer over when the timing was right to hospice. Um, I had a palliative patient, a lovely gentleman in his 80s. He was given a diagnosis of brain cancer. Um, and like doctors do, they gave him a life expectancy of a few months, which he well outlived. And where he was in his journey, now on paper, he may have been completely appropriate for hospice, right? We might say there were no more treatments available. There were no more aggressive treatments to pursue and no more interventions. However, and this is where I'm going to highlight by saying we meet the patient where they're at, right? Is that the patient was not ready for hospice. So the patient decided that he still wanted to pursue lab work with his primary care. He still wanted physical therapy and occupational therapy. In fact, he still wanted to see his cardiologist. Now, I don't even know why. I think he thought it was a social visit sometimes, but sure, he wanted to see his cardiologist. Great, right? So, after having a discussion with the patient and what his goals were, he joined our palliative care. He became family, right? So I would meet with him monthly. We would talk about his anxiety regarding his diagnosis, how therapy was working for him. Was he getting stronger with physical therapy? How was his balance doing? We would talk about how his current medications were working for him and how his primary care visits would go. And sometimes, if his blood pressure was off, or if his anxiety kind of was, a little more prominent than other times, I would talk with the rest of his medical team and we would adjust his medications as necessary. Now, as time went on and as cancer tends to progress without treatment or interventions, it became apparent that he really needed more, right? He needed more than what his primary care could provide, more than what his therapists can do. And it became apparent that he would greatly benefit more from what hospice can offer than what palliative and his current care team can offer. So I'm going to transfer this conversation to Cindy because she can talk about how hospice was then able to support him once he transferred on. I do want to say this, though, before I tag team with Cindy. Palliative becomes a way that you get more support and encouragement, but it also takes that fear away from that next step in your journey, right? It makes the word hospice, in my opinion, a little less scary and just a little bit more, as silly as this may sound, a little more relatable. So I'm going to take it over to Cindy.
I may have gotten involved a little bit before he came onto hospice. I can't
You may
really
have.
remember for
Sometimes I like
sure.
pulling Cindy in anyway. So
But I just couldn't remember. But It actually took a little bit of time for this man to trust. We knew that trust was going to be a little bit of an issue, so the nurse and I just worked really hard to build rapport. And thankfully, we were able to do that. And she really um, was welcoming of all of our visits, and we all felt like a really a nice cohesive team. She was very clear from the beginning that she was ready to die, but also he was, sorry, but also very accepting that he knew that it was out of his hands, and he was also comfortable with that it will happen when it will happen. Um, in came a few like family issues. There was a daughter who held most of the responsibility for her dad's care. Does have siblings, but it was mostly on her. And she kind of needed a little permission to take a little step away once we were able to come in and take some of the anxiety and some of the decision. Once we were able to help guide, she was able to take a little bit of a step back, and she really appreciated having that support and having that permission. Um, she also, there's longstanding issues. Although this gentleman seemed wonderful and kind and warm to us, there were some longstanding family issues where the daughter didn't always feel that that was how he acted toward her. So there was some, lingering negative feelings down in there too that she was dealing with. Um, and then you go back to the patient. He was really very thoughtful throughout his entire time with us. He knew that he was declining, and while he was ready to die, it was also a lot of processing that was going on to really get him to a place where he was peaceful with that thought. Um, he was often going through his life and talking about his kids, also feeling lonely and wishing they would visit more, but also wanting them to have their own lives. The kids are on the other side saying it will never be enough, no matter how much we visit. And this felt like it went on for months and months and months. But then there just came to be the time where the processing had sort of had sort of played its course. And in the last several months of his life, it was filled with much peace with his children, kindness, warmth, appreciation. And I think the time of processing that it took for him to get there is what brought him to that place. Um, Everyone ended up being at peace at the time that his death came, and I feel like um, we were just honored to be able to walk beside them and help in whatever way we could to help them get there and to be a sounding board and a shoulder and an ear and all of those things.
That's a great story. So a couple of questions have come in, some specific, some general. One specific question that came in is do you need a DNR when you go into hospice?
No, you don't need a DNR to come into hospice. In fact, we have several or numerous patients who do not have a DNR on hospice. Now, I'm not, the truth is our staff and our team will continuously talk to the families to ensure that this is in fact what they want. I sometimes say that being a full code can be quite brutal on the body, right? And so we just talk with the family, make sure that we are truly respecting their wishes and what they want. But I guess my long answer to your short question is that no, you do not need to be a DNR to come onto hospice.
Okay. Someone is talking about someone that they know that's not in Atlanta that has cancer and is in the hospital because of an infection and dehydration. So they're getting fluids and antibiotics. The doctors are recommending hospice, but her palliative care person says she needs to stay in the hospital and get stronger so she can do better on hospice. Does that make sense to you? And how would that be accurate?
So my answer to this is a fewfold, and Cindy can chime in too. I would say, what does the patient want? Because at some point, right, getting stuck with IVs or getting pumped with different medications that have their own side effects are really just not a desirable path for some people. So I would first start by saying, what does the patient want? And then truthfully, do they need to get stronger for hospice? No, right? We, again, and I'll say this a million times, we meet them where they're at. So if they were to be discharged from the hospital, because let's face it, who really wants to be in a hospital? Not many people, right? So if they opt to discharge from the hospital and stop the IV fluids and whatever medications, right, the IV antibiotics, hospice should provide that support by addressing any pain symptoms, any anxiety symptoms. Also, infections are treated on hospice too, right? I believe those are comfort measures. But I would say my starting point would be to ask the patient what they want, and then from there, hospice would be able to manage them in any condition that they would be sent home in. So.
And people tend to do better once they are, if it's what the patient wants is to be home, people tend to do better once they are home, able to sleep, where they're familiar and not having beeps and buzzes every hour but
Yeah.
yeah.
So can a patient receive meds and fluids, IV, while in palliative care?
Yes. On palliative care, I say, I call it this extra cushion you get, right? Because truthfully, nothing in your medical care has to change at all. I just get added into the mix, right? So you almost get this cushion, this extra oversight. I call it, you get some extra eyes, ears, and hands involved. And who wouldn't want that? Especially when sometimes it feels like the medical system can be less than um, less than.
Comfy.
So,
Right.
so yes, you can still pursue all treatments, all curative measures while on palliative. I just get to be added into the mix too.
And what about hospice? Can you get meds and fluids on hospice?
So certain medications, I would say yes, right? Fluids is not typically in line with hospice philosophy because that's almost just an extra aggressive measure, right? That you're doing to prolong life or what have you. Now, every case is different. And honestly, that's how every patient is treated and should be treated, right? No two patients are the same. So every case is different, but typically on hospice, we focus more on comfort measures and end of life treatment. Palliative is more curative measures, treatment measures, and um, yeah, so that's the
Yeah.
difference.
And palliative, you get seen once or twice a month. Is that correct? That's about right.
So yes and no. And I say that because I think this is very important. Our palliative program does not follow an algorithm, right? I do not look at a patient and say every single patient should be treated the same because let's be honest, they're not, right? No patient is the same. No two patients, even if they have the same diagnosis, should be treated the same. So typically, I start off by telling patients we see them once a month. That does not always hold, right? So, for example, if a patient is declining faster, if they have more medical needs going on, if they need more support, then I will see them more often than once a month. And that again goes based on the patient. So sometimes it's every other week, right? It really goes based on what the patient needs. Now, on the flip side of that, there are sometimes patients that are very stable. And let's be honest, there are so many doctor's appointments, right? And so many therapy appointments. And also, I want our patients to have a quality of life too, right? Being in doctor's appointments every day is not a quality of life by any means. And so, if they were to say to me, Aliza, you know what? I'm actually going out with friends this week. Can we skip it? I'll see you this week, or this time works better for me. Not only do I not get offended by it, Richard, I actually love that because I want our patients to have the best quality of life possible. That is something that we not only believe on palliative, but on hospice as well. So my long answer, again, sorry to your short question, was no, that is not the staple. It's just, I say it just as a blanket, I typically will see people once a month, but it changes.
If someone is, let's say, over 100 years old, but does not have a diagnosis of terminal illness, could they qualify for hospice just on their age?
So age alone is not a qualifier for hospice because I mean, I've seen patients live well into their hundreds, right? I know Cindy has too. So age alone is not typically a patient in their hundreds will have something we can hang our hat on, right? Where we can see, but age alone is not usually the
I don't know
qualifier.
if they just ran the marathon. I don't know.
There are some in the hundreds that look really good. So I have to take whatever they're taking.
And Weinstein Hospice does not have an end of life doula on staff. Is that correct?
Correct.
Do you think, is there a gap there? Do you think that's needed? I know Medicare does not cover, but
And Cindy, we've had patients who have hired their own end of life doula to work with us. Does Weinstein need, is there a gap there? Truthfully, I think, and I admit I'm biased, so I will say that I think our team is wonderful. I don't think that our patients would tell you they were lacking anything. I think between our nurses and our social workers, our volunteers, our therapists, our chaplain, and I'll even throw myself in there too, our nurse practitioner, I think our patients have they're wrapped in warmth and attention and love. And not just the patients, Richard, but the families as well. So I don't think there's a gap, but.
all right. We talked before about too early, and it's not really, it's never really too early. But what about too late? What does it look like when families come to hospice too late, rather later than ideal?
I can, Aliza, I'll let you speak to this, but I just want to say the from the get-go is that we treat anybody who comes our way. So whether they are on our service for 3 hours, for a day, we would never say it's too late, so it's not worth you being on our service. But I would say that you would miss out on some support services along the way, that we think would maybe be able to benefit not only the patient but also the family, and create um, a more peaceful um, environment at the very end of life. But I want to stress that there's never too late. And it's the same thing as Aliza said also, and that you said, we meet people where they are. And sometimes people are just not ready to take that step until very, very close to death. Or it could be that someone declined really, really quickly. And this wasn't even a consideration 3 days prior. So, but Aliza, please add.
I was just going to add on the medical side of things that there, so Cindy's correct, there's no too late. However, I would say that having hospice in a timely fashion helps make the transition a lot smoother for the family and the patient, right? So the dying process does not always look like a movie makes it look like, right? And it could be very hard and very traumatic. And so I would tell families that when hospice sometimes gets into the picture a little too late, sometimes the patient isn't able to get maybe as comfortable as they could have, right? Or the family didn't benefit from some of the support and the processing they needed to go through. So I know that hospice is this really ugly big word. I'm trying like really hard to get that word changed. You guys will have to help me on that one. But I think that it brings so much beauty and benefit into the journey. So while there is no too late, I do think that it's an unfortunate it's an unfortunate occurrence when families aren't able to get on board a little bit earlier so they can get comfortable.
So I think one of the reasons why that word hospice is such a bad word is that it means giving up. Is a person truly giving up when they go on a hospice?
I love that question. I'll let you take it, Cindy.
Um, we don't see someone coming onto hospice as giving up. We see them switching the type of treatment that they are choosing for themselves. So instead of um, and changing the goal is not for cure, the goal is for comfort and uh, highest level of quality of life possible. I do think there's a lot of education that needs to be done with hospice. I do think that it is very common that we meet people who say, well, once someone's on hospice, then they're given medicine and they die that week. And it's like, no, like none of that. So I think there is a lot of education, but I don't see it as giving up. I see it as really actually taking control over how you are choosing to spend this last part of your life and putting it in your hands and choosing what is right for you and having the type of treatment that that addresses what is most important to you, which may not be going to doctor's offices and having aggressive treatments that are painful. Um, so that's
Yeah,
I don't see it as giving up at all. Actually, it's more
I
Okay.
of
love that. I
acceptance
was
and
gonna
taking
say,
control. Yeah.
I find actually going on to hospice empowering, not
Hmm.
so. Um, it's all
I,
about perspective.
yeah.
Great. So if a loved one has dementia or chronic illness with ups and downs, how do families know when it's time to make that call? If it's up some one week and down the next.
So medically speaking, right, clinically, when a patient has ups and downs and they have that chronic illness, I would encourage them to pursue palliative care because they will be able to have some more insight and a closer look from a medical professional who can then give them guidance, right? Because the truth is, there are some illnesses that act exactly like that. It'll kind of go up and down and up and down, and it's hard to know, what are the next steps. And sometimes things look really bad to the family, or it looks more severe than maybe medically speaking, right? It actually is. So I think that's a very difficult question. And again, every patient looks different, but I would say getting on board with palliative would be very beneficial in those scenarios because you would have the benefit of somebody else helping you navigate and guide the journey.
And there's another question about preserving dignity in someone's final chapter. So you want to comment on that? Either.
Um, I mean, I can, yeah, I would say that that fits right into what our goal is. Our goal is to have each person's day be as good as it possibly can. And for us, having your dignity is interwoven with that. Not only for yourself, but for your family to be able to witness. So I feel like that is paramount to us. And I, you know what? There is one specialist that we did forget to mention is we also have aides who go into the house and help with bathing, but it's so much more than that because they are so caring and gentle. And when you put together all of these different people, and between the volunteers, music therapists, social work, chaplain, nurse, everybody is keeping their eye on the family and the patient and reporting back when there's a concern. So I feel like it's happiness, comfort, dignity, all of these things are rolled into our priorities. We want everybody to be treated the way that we would want our own family members to be treated.
I love
So
that. Can
yeah,
I
go
piggyback
ahead.
on to that?
Sure.
So I often am asked, about Weinstein and about it being a Jewish hospice. It's one of my favorite questions. And so what I like to tell everyone is that Weinstein Hospice and Palliative Care really is run with Jewish values in mind, right? And so one of those values I like to say is called Kibud Av V'Em, right? Which is translated as respecting your mother and your father. Now the thing is that no one, right, is going to love your parents like you, right? Those are your mom and your dad, and all those memories and cherished moments you have. But what I tell people is that we come pretty close because they become our family. They become just like our mom and dad. And so when it comes to dignity and respect, especially at the end of life, I think what our team does is focus on treating them, just like Cindy said, just like we would treat our own family.
Great. So, practical matter, who can make a hospice referral and when should families start having that conversation?
A medical professional can make that hospice referral. So it could be any doctor, right? It doesn't have to necessarily be the oncologist. It can be your primary care. It can be the cardiologist. If, God forbid, someone was in the hospital and in that hospital stay, you've determined or the conversation has come up that hospice was appropriate, a doctor at the hospital can make that referral. On palliative care, I can make that referral, right? So that makes it a little easier sometimes too. So nurse practitioners can make that referral. Any medical professional is able to refer someone to hospice. I will just say that they would then be evaluated by our team, right? So our team then comes out to evaluate them and ensure that they truly are eligible for hospice.
Okay.
Sometimes family members call us, and then we can help guide them on how to go about getting a referral if it seems that their loved one is appropriate. Some people haven't seen a doctor in years, and their loved ones are realizing um, that they've really declined. So we can always be called for guidance on how to get that process going.
So I know you two have presented this message in a very thoughtful and loving way, but what if people watching this are getting scared and unsure of the hospice story and what do you want to communicate to those people that are scared?
I would want to communicate that um, that I understand why it's a scary word, and I do think a lot of the stigma from past generations does not help. But we have people who are on our service for months and for years, and so the the way of looking at it, I hope, starts to change. But what I would say is this is part of why I think, and I can only speak to our hospice because I've never worked for another one, but this is part of why I think we are so special is because there's so many people on board to hold your hand and to walk you through it and to stand beside you. Because we do understand that it's scary. We do understand that it's overwhelming. We don't expect you to hear everything we say. We expect to repeat it multiple times. So I would say call us. We're welcome to we're more than happy to talk to you. Um, we're not trying to push anybody into anything, but we really want to meet people where they are and just um, be a source of support because we do know it's scary.
So how can the overall organization, Jewish Home Life, be a resource even if the person's not ready for hospice or palliative care yet? Can they?
I mean, we also, Jewish Home Life also, we have a assisted living facility. We have that also has memory care there and also has independent living there. We have a home health care company that is available to help if you're post-surgery and need someone to help for a little bit, or if you're starting to realize that you may need some help in the house on a more regular basis. That's Eckstein Home Care. We also have the Jewish Home, which is our nursing home. We also have Balzer Tower. I'm sorry, it's
That's
Balzer
right.
Tower. And I know some things have changed names and we have a makeover right now on campus. Um, So we have multiple options for residents, but also for care to be brought into your home. Um, and we have a lot of community involvement. A lot of the community comes and helps take part in the daily lives of our residents, either through volunteering or through special events. So it's really quite full of life um, over at JHL, even though it may not seem like that's what you would think.
Yeah. So what do you wish people would know before they ever need hospice? What should they know?
You
Oh,
know, I what I wish people would know, and I'm sure some of you may have heard me say this before, but I compare hospice to when there's like a fire in a building, right? And everyone's panicking because there's a fire in a building, and you call the firefighters, right? But then you say, no, I don't want the firefighters, right? And the firefighter comes to help you through the fire that's already in the building. And I liken that and I compare that to hospice. And this is what I wish more people knew. Hospice doesn't cause the dying process. We are here to help you navigate through it, just like the firefighters are there to help navigate you through this awful traumatic event, right? Which is being in a fire, a burning building. Hospice and our team are here to navigate you through this traumatic, one of the worst events that most people would say in life, right? And so I wish people would know that about hospice, and particularly Weinstein, is that we are here as a support. We didn't cause it, right? But we're here to help you get through it.
okay. So that winds down the questions that I have from the panel, but I did get a note from someone who knows of the care that you two specifically gave to a patient and wants to thank you specifically for that care.
Oh,
That's so sweet.
yes, thank
Any
you.
listeners, are there any other questions? One, we got about 2 seconds to put another question in the box. Oh, here's another question. How does Weinstein plan to handle the silver gray tsunami at hand? The baby boomers retiring in great numbers. Are you planning to expand your staff to accommodate the greater numbers or offer additional services?
I think that we're always open to, I mean, first of all, we're not full. We are certainly able to handle more patients right now, but we don't have a cap on what we plan on doing. Our thought is that we want to meet the needs. So um, as patients' numbers grow, we will add more staff to accommodate. But I am not an administrator, so I can't speak more to what the plans are. That's just how I understand
Sounds good
it.
to me.
Well, I would hope that we would be able to expand to serve the needs of the public of Metro
Yeah.
Atlanta. So listen, this has been wonderful, and several people have already commented in the comments about how wonderful this was and helpful. If people want to follow up further and learn more about Weinstein Hospice, would you send them to the website? And people would learn from there.
I think so. And there's also a number there that you can reach on the website. There's a number where you can reach someone on our team. Um, so and truly, if anybody has any specific palliative questions, I'm sure our team can direct them to me as well. So yes, feel free to look at our website, call us. Um, we're
And
here to
here's the
help.
slide. Here's a slide with the information, with the link for the website, our phone number for any questions, and a tickler for our next webinar, which will be at 12 noon on March 18th. Next conversation on the no contact situation that some families are going through at this point. So without further questions, I want to thank the two ladies, Aliza and Cindy, for a wonderful program. And I want to thank the listeners for attending and being very prompt with questions.
Thank
Thank
you.
you all. This will be on the Weinstein Hospice website to watch again. at some point in time.
Thank you, Richard. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night. Stay warm.
You too, all of you.
All righty. Bye-bye.
Bye.